Welcome into college football today here on SportsGrid TV. And well, things just continue to heat up for this Saturday slate in the college football nation. Right now, if you guys are watching Arizona State versus BYU, I hope your TV is a little further ahead because it's looking like pure chaos right now. You've got a bunch of fans on the field because, for the most part, you got a 28-23 victory for the Sun Devils over BYU, increasing that, lack of perfection that they haven't been able to find over the past 2 weeks. And that's pivoted over to Arizona State, who's looking to make sure they pull off 9 wins for their record. But whatever's going on the field right now is just madness. There's a review on the play, the final drive of this game. You got a very heated head coach going off. You got troopers on the field. You got security on the field. And you've got officials looking at the cam, trying to see what's going on before they really bring clarification to the situation. So seeing 1 second left on the clock in that fourth quarter there, 28-23. We'll see what the final say is for all of this. They're starting to clear students off of the field, probably get them back up in the stands. But, I mean, it was a full-blown victory. You would have thought rival, as in like FSU, Florida kind of rival going on down there. So we'll see what it says when this 1 second runs out as they get things cleared up. Outside of that, let's get to some other scores because we've got a number of games that were extremely narrow. We've got some big upsets, and then we also have some of the bigger games that were in the books from earlier today. What I love to see is South Carolina's numbers versus Wofford, 49-12, Wofford with the ball, but 5:06 left in the fourth quarter as that continues to wind down. First half looked a little odd for one of the best defensive teams in the nation, but they were able to accumulate those points offensively and move some things along. As for another game going on, you got Texas up on Kentucky, 31-14. Kentucky currently with the ball, 1:58 left in the fourth quarter as that gets ready to come to a close. It's still kind of the same song and dance for the most part. Texas off to a bit of a slower start. It didn't go all the way through the first half. It was in that first quarter, then they started to pick things up. But when you're talking playoff football coming up here so shortly, there's a number of these top 10 teams in the nation that just can't let teams in the beginning half or have these slow starts. It's been an unfortunate theme for a number of these teams. But another theme that has gone down since halftime is showing up fashionably late. Before we dive into the stats and numbers of Texas versus Kentucky, let's talk about two of the fashionably late teams. One of them being the chaos going on right now between Arizona State and BYU. Why do I call it fashionably late? Well, BYU looked dead in the water before halftime. Then they were able to pick up 23 points, or I should say 20 points, on the other side of the half, and now they're having this huge argument on the field about this last play with the clock winding out. Regardless, Arizona State was primarily the top team in control here. BYU could not find a rhythm until they got back from halftime. They were unable to stop Arizona State with the run game, and then Arizona State was even getting a few chunk plays here and there throughout the air. For the most part, Red Slap, 297 through the air, which is tremendous. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So, of course, some costliness there. Not much of a ground game for this team. Martin on the ground, 42 rushing yards through 9 carries. And then Lestier through the air, 103 receiving yards through 5 receptions. But on the other side here, you've got massive yardage on the ground from the Arizona Sun Devils, 147 from their lead rusher. And then in the air, you got Tyson, 125 through 9 receptions. So still waiting to see what the final call is on this play, but that's one of the teams that fell under that fashionably late category. BYU, just a little too little, a little too late. Another team, though, where they didn't have a tragic result at the end, they actually end up getting the victory, is going to be Penn State versus Minnesota. When we talked on college football today earlier between the 3 and 3:30 time slot, we were talking about the fact that I just did not like that 11.5 spread. It felt slightly disrespectful considering Minnesota was coming off of a bye week, considering the toe-to-toe pressure between these two teams, between the fact that we haven't seen a complete game out of Penn State, and no, last week does not count. Please look at their opponent. Regardless, the 11.5 spread was tossed out the window because it was a narrow win for Penn State, a team that, yet again, didn't really show up until that second half there. Minnesota was in complete control for the most part. Yes, Penn State tied it up in the second quarter, but as the clock was winding down to halftime, Minnesota took the lead. They end up going into halftime with the lead. They end up coming back with mostly a good amount of control in that third quarter, but Penn State just started to do all the right things. A huge credit, yet again, to their defense, coming up with big plays, big stoppage. You got Singleton on the ground, 63 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. And again, I still think he's a bit banged up, so it's still incredible to see what numbers he can post regardless. Warren in the air, going toe-to-toe with his QB, 102 through there through 8 receptions. And then Aller, you got 244 in the air, no turnovers, 1 touchdown. On the other side, though, I mean, a big effort from Minnesota in a number of ways. They were pretty consistent in trying to distribute their attack, very balanced-wise, and then their defense came up with a number of big plays as well. But it was those big plays in the fourth quarter that they just were not able to convert on. They ended up having to punt on 2 opportunities that would have picked up points for them if they were able to get through Penn State's defense. So defenses can win those big games, but this is not going to get Penn State through when it comes to the playoff conversation if they can't show up until the second half and if they're heavily relying on their defense to get a lot of action done. So those are the 2 teams that kind of showed up a little bit on the later side there. As for another game coming into the books, we talked about this with Rich Sermonello over the past 2 weeks. What do we make of this Colorado team? They have these big, elaborate, tremendous wins, and then they kind of have these shaky starts where you're like, well, I don't know how to gauge this. Talent, you can't question that whatsoever. The talent is entirely there, and theirs for the taking. Of course, they also have 2 Heisman candidates on their roster as well. But looking at how this game shaked out with Kansas, first of all, 37-21. Kansas was completely rhythmic and in control of this matchup in the first 2 quarters for the most part. Colorado was another team that was kind of fashionably late to the party to get any points on the board. More importantly, to narrow the margin that Kansas had put on them pretty early on. You're talking about Kansas in full control in the first half, picking up 10 points in the first quarter, 13 in the second quarter. Yes, Colorado started to come back in that second quarter, but neck and neck in the third quarter, and then all Kansas in the fourth. Looking at the leaders of this matchup, Sanders on the air, 267, 3 touchdowns. Sanders on the ground, 25 rushing yards. He led the rush for this Colorado team with only 25 yards. Then Hunter, of course, putting on another big performance, 125 in the air through 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns. But to fall short to Kansas, let alone to allow 37 points, these are the kind of defensive issues that you cannot have going into a postseason. You cannot be allowing 25-plus points for your opponent and then think that you're going to hang into any sort of playoff contention or those top bowl games that are be sorted out here shortly. So it's interesting to see how some of these teams have just, even though they're performing outstandingly offensively, their defenses are just having to weather too much, and we're seeing where some of that is falling apart here. So Colorado falls short to Kansas. Kansas pulling up another pretty good upset. You got BYU. Looks like things went back into play. The 1 second is still sticking on the clock. The arguments are still going down on the field, but it's 28-23. I don't know what BYU expects to get out of this one. Arizona State looking to go from 8-2 to 9-2 on their record of the season. Then we're going to start to get ready to look ahead here because we've got more big games coming at that 7 o'clock hour, and one of the bigger ones being Alabama versus Oklahoma. Psyched for this one. These 2 teams have not faced each other since a college playoff semifinal back in 2008. And yes, you probably guessed it right. It's Alabama that took the cake on this one, 45-34. But fun fact, it's Oklahoma football that actually changed the game for me back in 2011 when they beat my Seminoles. So sometimes they can be a sneaky team. We haven't seen them be in their best SEC form at all this season. A couple close games, but outside of that, it's just kind of been a mess. And for the most part, the theme for Oklahoma to not make this a messy game is not turning over the ball. So let's see how well they can protect the ball. Let's see how they can minimize any fumbles and then any massive turnovers to give Alabama a chance to run away with this one. Alabama does have to be that team, though, to come with a complete performance top to bottom. So stick with us here on College Football Today as we continue to run through the Saturday slate on the other side of this quick break.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board. He actually would not be my number 1 overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number 1 overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, well, welcome back into College Football Today here on SportsGrid TV. Safe to say that the official review chaos has commenced, but now the fan chaos has resumed on the field. So they cleared everyone off. They went back for one play. Arizona State secures the W 28-23 and clinching a spot. So big win for the Sun Devils, and at least the chaos is now fun chaos. Fans are crowding the field. Football players are being heavily filmed for all of the excitement that's going down right now. So this is what we're going to expect to see for the next coming weeks as the college football season gets ready to come to a close. But that's just the regular season. The real fun gets ready to begin. And like I mentioned beforehand, we're going to get ready to see a clearer picture of what playoffs potentially will look like. I talked about it earlier today, but anyone now joining us, just to kind of put some things into perspective as some other games come to a close here and before we preview the 7 to 7:30 games coming up. The playoff picture as of this morning was kind of looking something along the lines of Alabama taking on Notre Dame. Now, we know Notre Dame has been on a heater ever since that loss in week 2, and they're looking to continue their win streak tonight. It's going to be a big game versus Army, but outside of that, Alabama's one of those teams that we've seen fall short in a number of ways. We haven't seen that entirety to their game yet. If it's not Milroe getting a lot of the work done, what has come of this Alabama team? Defense has been pretty stout in a number of cases, but there's also been solvable moments versus their opponents. So I'm psyched to see how well they can perform tonight and how well they should be able to beat Oklahoma as well. Creating those turnovers should be something key for this Alabama defense, and I think they have all the tools and abilities to do just that. But that's one of the first parts of the playoff picture as of this morning. The other one is going to be BYU versus Ohio State. This one's now become a lot more interesting. You have BYU that just lost to Arizona State for one. You have Ohio State that just pulled off a massive win versus Indiana earlier today at that noon slate. That says a lot. I know that once the polls reconfigure and come out on Tuesday, we're going to see some movement, but regardless, this is kind of looking a little bit closer to what we could potentially expect. Ohio State has been on fire over the past couple of weeks. We talk about complete game when it comes to football, especially closing out the regular season. This is one of those teams that started to put together from offense, defense, and special teams and showed up in every way possible. And tonight just kind of was the icing on all of that, or today, I should say. BYU, a couple things they got to reconfigure before heading into that playoff picture. Then the next slot is looking like Ole Miss taking on Indiana. Indiana just fell short to Ohio State, if I didn't paint that picture pretty enough. And then you got Ole Miss that lost to Florida earlier today. Where did Florida come in so key versus Ole Miss. Well, for starters, their linebacking room, their secondary is tremendous. They make it extremely complicated. They limit you. And while Jackson Dart is fantastic, and we know that he can use his arm as well as his legs, and he did just that today, there were some mistakes on Ole Miss's part, some rough calls, some miscues, but regardless, Florida came in very hot defensively. They were able to stick to their ground game and pull off a win over Ole Miss today. And then the next one coming in, which I find this one to probably be one of the most exciting one yet, if this is something that comes together, right? You're talking about Georgia potentially taking on Penn State. I know I sound so redundant at this point, but I just can't help myself. It's a Penn State team that's extremely talented, but just has this ability to not show up until the second half of games, and then it depends on what Penn State's defense can do. Now, because Penn State's defense is so scary, you're talking about a Georgia team where you can force mistakes offensively, that's for sure. We've seen better performances, and by better performances, I should drop that S there. We've seen a better performance out of Georgia's offense in the previous week, but can they bring that ferocity and that same consistency versus a Penn State team that's got the defense to cause chaos and issues? Who knows? But that would make for such a great game. So, again, as of this morning, this is what the playoff bracket is potentially looking like. You know, those top numbers or those top teams, those are always to be determined as we get closer to the end of the regular season. Standing-wise, Oregon on top, Ohio State right behind, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, top 10 closing out with Tennessee. So, all that to start preparing us for what we're going to be looking for in tonight's matchup. Some of them just getting started here at the 7 o'clock hour, some coming up here at 7:30. We know that Alabama versus Oklahoma is one of the top games that we've got to pay attention to. Heading into this matchup, again, these two teams have not faced each other since 2018 playoff scenario, semifinal more specifically. Bama going with the win, 45-34. Heading into this matchup, 13.5 on the spread, 46.5 on the total. I'm guessing that this spread is favorably because we know that Alabama's offense can just be extremely overwhelming, but for the most part, we've seen so much inconsistency out of Oklahoma's offense, including those massive turnovers. I mean, a fumble cost them a game just the other week, and it's kind of been their script in a number of close game scenarios. So if you know that about this team and you have a defense that can cause those issues early on, we also see how Alabama just packs on the points at the end of a game, creating that large margin. So honestly, seeing this as 13.5 is not surprising to me. Heading into this game, though, Alabama's motto at this point, it's not about who we're playing against. It's about us executing at a high level. They know themselves that they've got to piece it all together now and make it look like the best well-oiled machine in college football. You got Milroe as the QB leading as their rusher, which you love to see that from a dual threat QB. Pass for 2,232 yards, 67.5% completion rate coming in hot as well. But the turnover potential ratio from touchdowns to interceptions, 15-6. So not too bad considering their opponents. Alabama is second in 16 teams in the SEC for scoring with 39.5 points per game. As I mentioned, they pack on those points at the end of a lot of these performances. Now, another big game coming up tonight, you've got Notre Dame versus Army. This is a big test for Army because Army has been one of those other teams that you talk about in the case of perfection. We talked about it with BYU. We talked about it with a number of teams. Well, Notre Dame has aimed for perfection ever since that Week 2 loss. Spread coming into this one is sitting at 14.5, total at 44.5. Now, Army has not played since November 9th when they beat North Texas. That's who they put a beating on. 14-3 on the road, by the way. They sit at 9-0, and they're 7-0 in the American Athletic Conference. We're going to see how much that conference really shakes out. So we're going to dive in deeper to this Army versus Notre Dame matchup. We're going to look ahead to two other games coming up at that 7:30 slot, and then reiterate this playoff picture. But we're going to keep you prepared with all of the college football action here on SportsGrid TV. Make sure you're following SportsGrid over at SportsGrid. Nice and simple. And then make sure you stick with us as we run through the numbers and the odds. One thing to put in mind before we go to the break here really fast. Riley Leonard versus Virginia looked quite impressive the other week. So we're probably going to take a look at his props and stats because he's been very consistent with delivering in that category and seeing where else we can probably find some good odds and lines when it comes to Notre Dame hosting Army coming up here shortly tonight. So don't go anywhere. Stick with us here on College Football Today on SportsGrid TV on the other side of this quick break.
The sharpest football contest show in the land. The Las Vegas Football Contest Show focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Grandma Bear, who owns the football team, probably comes in, gives a little, oh, man, you're such a good little boy out there. Congratulations, the way you coach this football team. I'm never going to fire you.
Totally, I missed you. Pinching your own cheek? Because I was looking down and did not know we were getting...
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there with that guy named Ben. Like, that's what your grandma would do to you when you go see her on Thanksgiving or Christmas,
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Together, both Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson had huge nights. Aaron Rodgers loves the 2 big targets, and he says if this is going to happen, going to be very tough on the defense to decide who they want to go after.
Adams and this kid Wilson, I won't deny what they can do, but nobody else does jack.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into college football today here on SportsGrid TV, getting you prepared for the college football games coming up here and running through the scoreboard throughout the nation. So a couple games to catch up on that have officially gone in the books. In case you missed it, Penn State pulls it off, comes out on top of Minnesota 26-25. Throwing that 11.5 spread out the window. Then you got Colorado versus Kansas falling short, that is. Kansas takes the W on this one, 37-21. BYU versus Arizona State and all of that chaos at the end there, that is. Arizona State 28-23 over BYU, dropping them their second L of the season. Then you've got Clemson putting up 51 points today, putting up a big statement win as well. Texas versus Kentucky, 31-14 would be the victory for Texas. Honing in on this one for just a second. Quinn Ewers, 191 in the air, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Wisner on the ground, 158 through 26 carries. And then Golden in the air, 86 receiving yards through 7 receptions. So another one of those situations where it didn't require Ewers to put up 200-plus passing yards. Their ground game was well distributed when it came down to Texas beating Kentucky 31-14. South Carolina, this final. They stack 56 over Warford, which you love to see. Sellers, 307 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Sanders on the ground, 72 rushing yards through 15 carries. And Campbell in the air going toe-to-toe with his QB with 120 receiving yards and 5 receptions. Why I point that out is because tonight in the post-game show, when we have a chance to talk with Dubs as well as Rich, I kind of want to see where this Heisman market is now starting to take a turn. You're seeing a number of guys who are starting to show up in the last leg of the regular season. You're seeing some big losses come up for some of these top teams and these top Heisman candidates. So how is this going to shake around some of the odds? What numbers should you guys be jumping on now before things get ready to close out? Rich is really good at giving insight on where the voters will probably lean heavily regardless of division, conference, and so on and so forth. So good performances continue for South Carolina all around. Now, Army and Notre Dame got going. Notre Dame gets on the board fast and early. 10:24 left in the first quarter here. You got Riley Leonard already with 46 through the air. Love with 22 on the ground. And then Faison with 28 through 1 monster reception on a chunk play there. So total yardage already for Notre Dame sitting at 68. Pass yard wise sitting at 46. Where we were going before we got to the break on this one, was how consistent Riley Leonard has gotten with his completion rate numbers through the air. We've seen him be more of that dual threat quarterback through majority of the season, where he's consistently putting up 50-plus rushing yards. That's always typically where I've leaned in terms of loving his numbers, because you never knew if he was going to go for 200 passing yards or 220 passing yards. But they've started to have him air the ball just a little bit more, but I'm guessing it's to have that balanced approach heading into the postseason. This team has been so heavy to make sure they don't drop one ever since that Week 2 scenario. So a couple of things that we were looking at, keeping in mind versus the Army matchup. Army can be disturbed when it comes to their list of perfection today. Obviously, the competition conference-wise is going to be tremendously different as well. You're going to probably see bigger numbers out of Love if they want to alleviate Riley Leonard a little bit more going against Army, unless Army brings this a lot closer. The spread, 14.5, should tell you a number of things, and I kind of stand by it to see what they're going to be able to do. Biggest thing for Notre Dame is how are they going to be able to slow down the run game, more specifically daily for Army. He's really consistent when it comes to picking up the yardage. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1,062 to be more specific, and 21 touchdowns. So that red zone shutdown, that third down shutdown, is going to come in heavy for the Fighting Irish today to make sure that this game does not get out of hand. Also, keep in mind, Army's averaging 419.9 yards per game and 330.9 yards on the ground alone. They stand first in the nation when it comes to the ground game, and a lot of that does come from daily. So we'll see if those numbers get ready to take a shift. I'll be hopping on with In-Game Live to do the halftime report so that we can see what odds and lines may shake out from the current results of the first half. But for the most part, I think Notre Dame can hold on to this one. You got Wyoming up over Boise State 3-0, nice and early themselves, 7-16 in that first quarter. And then Washington State versus Oregon State. Oregon State currently in the lead with 7 points on the board. 6 minutes and 50 seconds as the first quarter winds down. So a lot of good action going on around the league. Texas A&M takes on Auburn, closing out, not fully closing out the night, but coming into the night at the same time as Alabama takes on Oklahoma, which we talked about. Iowa State and Utah. Utah was one of those teams that I was excited about in the beginning of the year. They dealt with a number of issues, and it's just been really hard for them to get back to their game ever since all of the shakeups from Week 1 and 2 heading into Week 3. So a lot of potential for next year, but we'll see how they can hang in here. The Cyclones have dropped a number of key games as well, so it could be a much closer matchup than anticipated. And I believe that the spread and everything correlates with that as well. So we'll be back on that. 6.5 on the spread, 42.5 on the total more specifically. Texas A&M, 2.5 on the spread, 46.5 on the total. A lot of people loving Texas A&M when it comes to covering the spread. So all that and more here on SportsGrid TV. Join In-Game Live to stay up to date on all the best things going on around sports, and I'll catch you guys a little bit later.
Sharpest football.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We live in a society right now where everybody's a snowflake, everybody's a cupcake, and everybody thinks that nothing is fair. Everything is like, it's not fair. We should have a better chance. We need more. You know what? I'm old enough to remember when you needed to have a perfect goddamn record to win a college football championship. That's the way it was. 11-1, too bad.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Marcus Johnson, when you look at Nikola Jokic, these aren't guys that are big, super athletic, dunking and jumping over people. These are just guys that are clean, skilled footwork and do things below the rim that make the everyday guy look like it'd be like, I can do that. But you can't, and neither can I.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome in. This is in-game live college football game day here on SportsGrid. Adam Kaufman. We will welcome in Brady Cannon in just a moment. And then our parade of guests. There is going to be so much coming your way in the next 3.5 hours. Obviously, a lot of college football as the playoff continues to take shape. The regular season is winding down. Bowls and obviously the debates around that 12-team bracket that the committee is going to have to stress over. Those are coming fast and furious. We will go game by game across the NFL on the heels of a blizzard, a snow bowl on Thursday night in Cleveland, where the Browns, a dog not only covered, but won outright to kick off Week 12. So a lot of excitement coming up, plus a whole bunch of buys. So even more time for us to be able to dive deeper into the games that we do have in front of us tomorrow, and maybe even, if we have time, Monday as well. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. It's going to be a wonky schedule in the NFL. We got football basically every single day. In fact, not basically, literally until, I don't even know, for weeks to come, football every day. You can't beat it. You cannot beat it. And today's been fun. Today's been really interesting. Indiana finally takes a loss, gets blown out, and people are shouting frauds. They don't belong. Signetti is ticked. Jackson Dart, come hell or high water, he was for damn sure going to throw an interception at the end of that game, and nobody was going to stop him. Ole Miss loses. If you had the over 9.5 wins, if you had them to win the conference, sorry. Like me, it sucks. They went down to Brady's Gators. Florida, huge win today. Kansas upset Colorado. That was a lot of fun. Notre Dame already getting ready to blow doors tonight, up a couple of touchdowns. You can't beat this time of the year, Brady. This is incredible.
It's absolutely fantastic, my friend. And yeah, that was nice for my Gators. Not so nice for my Buffaloes, but my Heisman hopeful and Travis Hunter had a pretty nice game,
yes.
So he looked to be okay there. I'm right there with you, man. The holidays are right around the corner. I love that time of year. We've got a fantastic lineup tonight. A lot of my friends that I hang out with here in Las Vegas, when they make it to town or when I'm around town and bump into them, Tommy Lorenzo, Kenny White, and Drew Dinsick, a packed show, and I'm excited to get into it with you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just looking back through today. For anyone that, has, I'm not going to go score by score and everything, but just to review the top 25 for you very quickly. South Carolina absolutely clobbered Wofford, won by 40-some points. Missouri doubled up Mississippi State. Like I said, Indiana fell big time at Ohio State. That one was 38-15. Texas took care of Kentucky with ease, doubled them up. Penn State eked one out against Minnesota, but you know what? There were a lot of people that were on the Gophers plus 12.5, including me. That one was honestly pretty sweat-free, which is always a nice thing. And Penn State, the number 4 school, still got the win, which is big for them. Miami, we talk about Miami from time to time. No problem with Wake Forest today. Ole Miss, as mentioned, upset in Florida, 24-17 in that one. Georgia tested for a little while by plucky UMass. But the Minutemen are 2-9, and Georgia is 9-2, and the score reflected it, 59-21 in that one. Tennessee shut out UTEP by 56 points. SMU all over Virginia, 33-7. Arizona State took a little longer than planned because what was first and goal kept moving back. I think they got to like the other 40-yard line before that game finally ended as a result of whether it was penalties, sacks, running away from defenders. It was ugly finish, but it's okay. Arizona State still took care of business against BYU. That was 28-23, and that was a popular one for a lot of people as well. As mentioned, Kansas took care of Colorado 37-21. You had Clemson all over the Citadel, and Illinois over Rutgers by a touchdown in a high-scoring game. There were a lot of other interesting spots throughout the day that we will have some time to get into. But you mentioned it, Brady. We got Tommy Lorenzo here. He hosts the Cover the Weekend Sports Betting Podcast. He is on Twitter at SportsbookTom, and I know is a big fan of the Fighting Irish, who came into this game tonight 14-point favorites and lead in the first quarter. Tommy, 14-0.
Yeah, good start for the Fighting Irish. Army 8-0 against FBS teams, only one game against a team that's over 500 so far. I think it was at East Carolina. So I expected them to have their hands full tonight. And, so far, first quarter, it's looking like it. But, we'll see. There's still a lot of game left, but Notre Dame's looking good.
Tommy, another game that is winding down towards the first quarter, just got a 61-yard touchdown run from that man, Ashton Jeanty. That is Boise State in Laramie tonight, and they were trailing for a while here for the better part of this first quarter. Now 7-3 in favor of Boise State, and that Heisman run continues for Jeanty. Travis Hunter, like I mentioned earlier, a good game for him today. Boise State had a real scare last week by the Spartans of San Jose State and a little bit of a scare here early by the Cowboys of Wyoming, but Wyoming is not a very good team at all. I don't think Boise State should have trouble covering this big number if they can just get a stop here and there on defense tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Wyoming's defense is pretty bad, one of the worst in all of college football. So I think Boise State can score at will here. Off air, we were talking about the wind up in Laramie tonight, 30 to 40 mile per hour gusts. So, they may not be airing it out, but do you really need that with Jeanty running the ball? I don't think so. He'll run the ball all night. And, their head coach isn't afraid to run him. I think he wants him to win the Heisman, although I think he's number 2 now. But, I don't think Boise should have much trouble covering this. And I don't think this going over is going to be very difficult either. We'll see as the night goes on. But, as long as they don't let Wyoming go nuts, which I don't think they will, Boise State's defense, I think Boise should cover this.
Tommy, we got a big one kicking off here in a matter of moments, and that is Alabama, the number 7 team in the country, at Oklahoma. The Crimson Tide, despite being the road team, big favorites, 13.5, 14-point favorites. At least in terms of the people that I pay attention to, respecting the space, and we could look up where the money's been going, but people increasingly throughout the day have been on the Sooners. Again, when you could get them at the plus 14, particularly appealing because obviously that is a key number. Which side of this game are you on?
I have a lot of respect for Alabama and what they're doing. I think they've been a little undervalued. I hate to say under the radar, but I like Oklahoma here simply because I like good defenses at home. This should be a strong game for Oklahoma playing in front of their home crowd. Top 20 defense for Oklahoma. I think at home they'll do enough to contain Alabama. I don't know if they'll get the win, but I think they'll keep things close and make it respectable and cover.
Tommy, I think a very interesting game is Texas A&M at Auburn, and it's been a topic of conversation all week about A&M looking ahead to Texas. Their coach even stumbled and said Texas in a press conference earlier this week. It's been an up and down, relatively disappointing season for Auburn, but this feels like a real good spot for the Tigers.
It really does. And the look ahead, I think, is real here. And the line move is pretty interesting, too. There is more money coming in on A&M from what I saw, but yet the line's moving the other way. So there's a sharp line move towards Auburn here. I wouldn't go a full unit on this, but I would lean Auburn to give A&M a very tough game here. I think the look ahead is real.
As far as the top 25 action that is going on right now, as mentioned, Notre Dame up big at home already. Army with the ball, but it's 14-0, 3 minutes and change to go in the opening quarter. Auburn is second and goal at the Texas A&M 2-yard line just a few minutes into that game. So points seemingly on the way. Utah, Iowa State scoreless, only a couple minutes in. Boise State, we talked about that one, up 7-3 at Wyoming, about 3 minutes to go in the opening quarter. We will continue to monitor all of these games, as well as the interesting games outside of the top 25 as well, obviously. Look for live betting opportunities and you name it, really. Alabama, Oklahoma, we were just chatting about that one. That is the only other top 25 game or game involving a top 25 team that has yet to kick off. But rest assured, there's plenty of college football coming throughout the night, late into the night. Stay with us here on Sports Grid.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to Kimura that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the from. Oh, he's out! He's out!
Trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
It's in-game live college football game day here on Sports Grid. Thanks so much to everyone who is out there watching or listening or both paying attention to the program. We do appreciate it. Adam Kaufman, Brady Cannon. We got Tommy Lorenzo here with us from, of course, the Cover the Weekend Sports Betting Podcast, talking through all things college football right now. We can circle back to maybe some of the games that already finished up and their impact on the college football playoff and just teams that are either getting hot or imploding down the stretch. But still looking at some of these games that are getting underway tonight. And Tommy, interesting one. Again, it doesn't involve ranked teams that, you know, maybe a bowl aspirations. Virginia Tech, 2.5-point favorites at Duke. This is one, and no great surprise when the spread is as thin as it is, but I've seen a lot of people on both sides of the ledger when it comes to this game. Do you have expectations for it?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Duke here in this spot. Virginia Tech 5-5. It just doesn't seem like they can really ever get going. There's aspirations at the beginning of every season, but they just don't seem to have that toughness that I'd like to see when, especially going on the road against a good defense like Duke. I'll take the points with the Blue Devils in this one.
Tommy, a game that's going to kick off here momentarily is LSU hosting Vanderbilt. And this has been the overachiever against the underachiever. The LSU Tigers have dropped 3 games in a row, and yet they're laying nearly double digits here to the Commodores. Does the dream season continue for Vanderbilt, or do you play LSU here?
Well, you know, there's more money coming in on Vandy, but the line's moving the other way. So, again, that's always curious when I see these line moves happen. You would think LSU takes care of business at home. But, you know, the locker room stuff, Coach Kelly, it just seems like it's a little murky right now. But Vandy's defense is not very good. And, you know, you got to give them credit for doing what they've done this season, you know, upsetting some teams and taking a lot of really good teams in the SEC to the limit. But I would lean LSU here, although I think this line has gotten a little too high. I think it's at 10. right now. So if it was a little lower, maybe LSU, but at 10, I'll probably back off. I have a little too much respect for Vandy, even though I don't think their defense is that good.
Late night, and when I say late night, I mean, boy, we still got a little, almost 3 hours away from this one. Look, guys, F1 is not the only thing that is hanging out in the great state of Nevada this week. You got Nevada playing host to Air Force. This is another one that, very slim spread, 2.5. Similarly, the home team is the favorite in this one. Where do we go here, Tommy?
Yeah, Air Force has been improving. It was really surprising to see what a slow start they got off to, because they usually reload every year. They usually bring in athletes and usually compete in the Mountain West, but they're starting to get things going a little bit. I would probably lean Nevada here, though. I think Nevada is battle tested. They've faced some pretty tough teams and have been in some battles and have stepped up. I would lean Nevada here. Although Air Force is improving, I think Nevada is probably the play in this one.
Tommy, you and I were talking off air about this game, or at least half of this game, and that was the Cincinnati Bearcats. They are visiting Manhattan, Kansas, and the Wildcats of Kansas State. Both of these teams, I think, have been relatively underwhelming this year. We know K-State can run the ball. Cincinnati can run the ball pretty well as well. I wonder, in your mind, do you feel that Kansas State is worthy of being favored by 9.5, 10 points?
Yeah, this is the biggest spread Cincinnati has caught all season as underdogs. I was looking at the spread history. I think they were 7 points was the biggest spread they've faced. So the spread has gotten a little too much for my taste, because I think Cincinnati's defense still plays. But Chris Kleiman's against the spread record at home as favorites, pretty good. So if you like those trends, it's pretty good. At 19-10, I wrote it down as a home favorite in the Chris Kleiman era. So a high percentage there. And then when K-State comes to the field after a loss, 15-7, almost 70% ATS. So if you look at trends, I'm probably going to go Kansas State on this one. I just don't know. Cincinnati's been so inconsistent. They do have good defensive numbers, but it seems like teams figure them out. Offenses figure them out as the game goes. So this is kind of a high spread, but I think I'd go K-State here.
So, Tommy, I mentioned I wanted to circle back to some of the games that happened earlier, and I do think, even though it's probably not going to go down as the game everyone's talking about when we get out of the weekend, it is notable that Indiana suffered its first loss today and did so in rather embarrassing fashion compared to maybe expectation going in. I don't think it was a great surprise that Ohio State won the game. There were plenty of people that bet Ohio State today, but the fact that Indiana really didn't even look competitive in this one, like I said off the top of the show, had people shouting frauds, even to the point where Curt Cignetti, the head coach for the Hoosiers, was asked after the game if his team belongs, after its first loss, in the 12-team playoff. And he says, is that a serious question? I'm not even going to answer that. And then, did the little wink and a nod and said yes before exiting the podium ultimately. But there are going to be a lot of people, especially on social media, sort of the vocal minority, if you will, that are screaming the same thing. Do you look at Indiana any differently after kind of a non-competitive loss today?
They were due for a stinker, but you can't turn the ball over inside your own 20. The punt went right through the punter's hands. The quarterback sack, and you got the fumble and the turnover. You can not do that when you're playing teams like Ohio State, and you can't do that, obviously, if you're in the college football playoff. So you saw what Indiana can do early in the game. They went head-to-head with Ohio State. It was their scripted plays in the first quarter, but a little disappointing. I was on Indiana today, and I just felt that once things weren't going their way, the wheels fell off, and that's not really the sign of a championship team. Usually championship teams can recover from blunders like that, but Indiana couldn't. And speaking of which, Ole Miss, same thing, a couple of mistakes against Florida, and that did them in. They were playing catch-up all game and never recovered.
Yeah. Ugly situation there for Ole Miss today, especially at the end. It just seemed like they wouldn't give up. There was going to be an opportunity, but credit Florida, credit Brady's Gators. The defense
How about
didn't
the
quit.
turnaround?
They were relentless. Relentless at the end.
Going to be first coach without a job early in this season, and the turnaround that they have experienced has really been incredible. You got to tip your hat to the guy.
Yeah, not so much tipping the hat of the coaching staff on the Ole Miss side, but we can talk more about that, as well as some remaining games tonight when we return.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
Goes that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
But my goodness. How are you going to Kimura that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Henry's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the control. Oh, he's out! He's out!
And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
Back with Brady and Tommy and talking all things college football. We got a few more minutes here, so let's get in. We've got USC and UCLA still to come tonight. It's an interesting contest, 4.5-point spread in this one with USC the favorite at UCLA. And, you know, Tommy, both these teams, I mean, neither one has a great record. You know, they're middling. They're both mediocre, but both these teams are, you know, in the mix for a bowl. They're both mathematically, able to clinch a bowl still. That's because it's just watered down. There are way too many bowls, but it keeps competition alive, I suppose, and gives us importance when, like I said, mediocre squads match up toward the tail end of November. Where do we go here? USC needs one more win in the final two games. UCLA needs to win out as far as, you know, getting to a bowl. So like I said, motivation is not going to be a factor in this one. In terms of, I was looking also with spread numbers, and you get USC 0-4 against the spread on the road so far this year. How much do you worry about that?
Not too much, since the game's in Pasadena. There'll be plenty of USC fans there, and you know the bus trip up to the Rose Bowl isn't going to be a big deal for USC. I think here more than anything, I liked what I saw out of USC last week with their new quarterback, Jaden Mayava. He came in there, and they seemed to get behind him and they played pretty well against Nebraska, pretty decent defense. And you saw what Nebraska did today. They took care of business against Wisconsin. So this is a business decision. As a Notre Dame fan, I think USC is about 7 points better than UCLA. I do think that USC will do well here. The thing is that UCLA has played well against teams that have good defenses but not good offenses, and that's kind of the opposite for USC. USC's defense is not very good, but offensively they can still move the ball. They're still a top 20 offense in the nation. So I think USC will cover this and win this game and cover I think it's at 4.5, 5, depending where you're at. I think SC covers tonight.
I'm kind of with you, Tommy. You know, like Adam said, but neither of these teams are very good, but I do believe USC is better than UCLA on both sides of the ball. And I thought the number was maybe a little bit short. I'm not involved yet. Maybe I will here at the next commercial break. I'll pick up my phone here, log on, and maybe play some Trojans late night. Pac-12 after dark, 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern on that one. And this one will also kick at the same time. Little Mountain West action in Fresno, California. Fresno State, the Bulldogs have lost 2 in a row. They're off of a bye. They just came off of a loss to Air Force, which is a bad loss. On the other hand, Colorado State has won 5 in a row. It's been a great campaign for Jay Norvell. And if they win out, believe it or not, they will play in the conference championship. Can they get it done as a, short dog here on the road at Fresno?
Yeah, I don't like Fresno very much. I don't like how they've looked against, you mentioned Air Force, and also Hawaii. They failed. They didn't play very well in those 2 games and also didn't cover. And you have a Rams team here, 7-3 against the spread this season. Fresno State's getting 2/3 of the money here as well. So if you're looking at that angle as well, just a lot of things point me to Colorado State here. They have a lot to play for. I don't think anyone at the beginning of the season, saying last 2 weeks of the season, Colorado State had a chance to be in the Mountain West final, but they find themselves here. I'm not a big Norvell guy, but their head coach. Don't think he's that great, but he's got them playing pretty good, and I think Colorado State is the play tonight here.
Rushing touchdown for Army, so that deficit cut in half. Notre Dame up 14-7. It is still very early in the second quarter. Long ahead, and I don't worry about Notre Dame getting the cover in this one. Auburn, a passing touchdown as Thorne found Coleman for 63 yards. So Auburn is about to take a 14-0 lead at home against Texas A&M. 6 minutes to go in the opening quarter in that one. Before we let you go here, Tommy, just any big takeaways from the day today that, lead you into the new week?
I think very quietly, SMU, a lot of people talk about their offense and how good they've been, but I've seen their offense statistically just improve exponentially throughout the season. I think they look great today. They went on the road and took care of an improving Virginia team. So I like that. I think Ole Miss, I don't think they should be in the playoff. The SEC, you're probably going to see a 3-loss team get in there. I don't think it should be them. But even with 12 teams now, there's still going to be a cluster when they start figuring out who gets in. So it should be a fun last couple of weeks of the season here.
I agree with you on SMU, Tommy. Very impressive.
Yep.
Tommy's on Twitter at SportsbookTom. Make sure you check him out there. He hosts the Cover the Weekend Sports Betting Podcast, giving out picks, making people money, and kind enough to join us here on In-Game Live at College Football Game Day. Tommy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brady and Adam. Appreciate it.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajera is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Fajera in the gray.
That lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Fajera. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. For underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the from. Oh, he's out! He's out!
First full hour now underway here for in-game live college football game day. We've got you for the next 3 hours. Adam Kaufman, Brady Cannon. We have ourselves a couple more guests on the way. Plenty of both college and pro talk, NFL talk. We'll be going game by game across the Week 12 slate. Maybe even look back on Jameis Winston, that big, exciting win over Russell Wilson on Thursday night, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, we always talk Mike Tomlin as a dog. As favorites, though, pardon me, not nearly as sharp, especially as favorites following a win. That is not an area of success for Mike Tomlin historically. And look, it's a division battle there in the AFC North. Those are always tough, but now it's going to be a battle for first place between, of course, Pittsburgh and Baltimore coming down the stretch. But we still, as we sit again in Week 12 out of 18, we got a lot of season left here in the NFL. Not nearly as much in terms of college football. Playoff rankings, seeding, it's all right now in terms of the bracket, something the teams are fighting for. We're going to find out from the committee in a matter of days who's in, who's not. We'll find out soon enough who's going to bowls. All of it. It is a very interesting time. Just to, again, let people know what's going on in the top 25 at this moment. Notre Dame, so up 14-7 at home, 10 minutes to go in the opening half. We had mentioned, 2 minutes ago that Army got on the board with a touchdown, and almost immediately Notre Dame poised to respond. The Fighting Irish sitting 3rd and goal at the Army 2. We'll see how aggressive they are with Riley Leonard and the rest of the crew there in terms of scoring a touchdown, or if it does go to 4th down, if they are willing to settle for 3 and just slowly and meticulously build upon that lead. I don't think it's going to be a game that's close by the end anyway, despite, all due respect to Army's 9-0 start. You're on a different level playing in South Bend against Notre Dame. 10-7, Wyoming is now leading after a touchdown against Boise State. So this one, fascinating. Boise State coming in 9-1. Wyoming, of course, 2-8. Not a particularly impressive performance so far in the Mountain West this year. That game has an eternity left as well. 9.5 minutes to go in the opening half. Probably won't be close by the end, but we've said that before, and sometimes these games do go down to the wire, so we will see. As mentioned yes, sir.
In Baton Rouge. Guess
Giving me, what do we got?
Vanderbilt out in front, 7-0. These guys just won't go away,
we should
man.
Just be picking the Commodores as a dog every single game. And on the money line, never mind covering. It is worth a sprinkle on Vandy in these last several weeks. Just, like you say, hot dog money. Like, just throw a little something at it because, they do not
who
go
has
away,
Vanderbilt
man.
on the money line tonight? You know who I bet has Vanderbilt on? No. Colby Dant. I think that guy's been on there. He seems to have been on them on the money line a couple different times this season when they were underdogs. I bet he's on him again here.
Speaking of Colby, and I know he's not on the show with us tonight. He often is here on Saturday nights. But, of course, whenever we talk with him, we talk about Travis Hunter and that Heisman ticket. He got it at 80-1. You got it at 25-1. He is still, right there now at the top. It's just battling it out. He and Ginty for Boise, and as mentioned, Colorado did not win today. I don't know how much that will come into play in terms of the voters, but he had himself a great game. Again, both sides of the ball, a couple of touchdowns, whole bunch of yards, whole bunch of tackles as a defender. he is just so much fun to watch and so incredibly impressive.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm an absolute fan, and obviously I have a ticket on him as well. But no, I have thoroughly enjoyed watching this kid really from the very beginning. I had kind of forgotten about him in the off season, and then that first game, they're like, it was, I think he played 140 some snaps or something like that. And that was really the beginning, this season and his coming out party. And then he got hurt a little bit, but he came back, and he is just really something to watch. Yeah, I really don't think it hurts his Heisman chances today, the loss. Maybe it hurts a little bit, but he had a great game. Like you say, I think it was 125 yards receiving, had about 8 catches, I believe, and 2 touchdowns. And Colorado, of course, that was a tough spot for them. I actually did bet on Kansas today. I was really hoping to thread the needle there, Adam, and, hope Kansas would cover, but that Colorado would win. But thank goodness that Hunter had himself a great game. I was looking at the Heisman odds after last week. Hunter had another good game last week in a victory. I saw anywhere from like minus 300 to minus 500. And the number on GT was about plus 350. So I don't know. I imagine it's going to be similar. I don't think he took a real hit unless GT goes absolutely berserk. Maybe he dents that number a little bit. But I think Hunter is going to remain a pretty heavy favorite.
Yeah, we'll see. GT at the moment, not doing a whole hell of a lot today. Again, Boise State is down 10-7, but still 9.5 minutes to go in that second. All right. So I take it back. I could get Matt in my ear going, you may want to look at that box score again. All right. So through a quarter and change, he's carried the ball 7 times for 102 yards and a touchdown. I am wrong.
Not bad.
I take it back. That's fine. That's what we call a great game in the NFL. And for GT, that's a great, 20 minutes.
If they lose,
very impressive
Adam,
start for him.
If Wyoming pulls off this upset, which would be huge, Boise was favored by over 22 points the last time I looked. And Wyoming, as you mentioned, now out in front. A loss here, despite what GT does in this game, I think a loss by Boise kind of kills his chances versus Travis Hunter. That was a tight game, a 3-point spread. Colorado didn't lay down and look awful. They played a good game. Hunter was good, very competitive game, but it could kill GT if Boise State were to lose tonight.
Boise State's still a 13.5 point favorite at plus money, by the way. I'm looking at plus 104 on FanDuel with the ball down by 3, about 9 minutes to go in the second quarter. But to your point, and, in large part why someone like Colby was able to get Travis Hunter at 80-1 to win the Heisman is because unlike GT, unlike Boise, there were no real expectations for Colorado coming into the year. One of the first, I think the first bet actually that I placed on the college football season was taking the over team total wins for Colorado. And it was, I think, 5.5, albeit with heavy juice. They have obliterated that. The Buffs under Dion have had themselves a solid year. Now, unfortunately, it's capped. Like we're not going to see them win a national championship, but nobody expected them to going in. It wasn't until they kind of got rolling that it was like, man, can they get to the playoff? Can they make some noise there? What can they? And Hunter's going to end up by the end being the great story. And then obviously we find out where Shedeur ends up going in the draft and all of that and how high both those guys. Obviously, that program is going to turn over quite a bit from this year to next year. Who knows? Maybe even Dion ends up leaving, despite the fact that he says he's not. But right now, it is a pretty compelling story for all of college football. There's no doubt about it. Notre Dame, I just want to mention, I talked about how they were third and goal on the 2, wound up turning it over on downs. And so Army, hell of a defensive stand, not going away. Army is the ball deep in its own territory, but nevertheless, 14-7, Notre Dame is still leading and still a 19.5 point favorite in this game. That is the respect for 9-0 Army in this one, Brady.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I didn't get involved in this game, but I would be with you on your side. I think the Fighting Irish will find a way before the night is over there in South Bend, or in Yankee Stadium, rather.
Yeah. Soon the home of the Pinstripe Bowl. Get excited.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady, I am Adam. This is In-Game Live College Football Game Day on SportsGrid. We will be joined in just a matter of moments by Kenny White. He is a professional gambler, handicapper. He is someone that has the Bet the Gambit podcast. We'll be chatting with him, find out his takes on all things college football today, what we've seen so far, what's still to come, early thoughts on the committee and how they are going to handle the college football playoff. Brady, any spots in particular that you are most looking forward to tonight?
I think UCLA, USC is always fun. I think this Mountain West clash with Colorado State and everything that they have on the line is going to be interesting. Fresno State, for the most part, has been an absolute disappointment this season. I think Baylor is interesting. You know, they've all of a sudden been on a nice run. Dave Aranda was really on the hot seat before the season started. They're at Houston tonight. Houston has been pretty much a doormat, but they've played a lot of people really tough. And a little bit of an in-state rival here with Baylor. They could give the Bears some trouble, I imagine. A&M and Auburn we talked about. There's a lot of good games going on tonight, Adam.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, obviously, in the sport, and definitely, hopefully, the reality bears itself out on the field and not just in reputation. That's always what you worry about with some of these big contests. Checking in here on the top 25, the games that are in progress. Sure enough, Notre Dame, it was a second ago. Notre Dame has just scored a touchdown, a 14-yarder out of Love, and so 20-7, about to be 21-7, assuming the PAT is not screwed up, and sure enough, it's good. Nice kick, Jeter. 4.5 to go in the opening half. And again, if you were on the Fighting Irish, minus 14 coming in, or even better, if you got them at minus 13.5, then, you know, at the moment, I think we're trending in a very comfortable direction where you might have even considered alts on Notre Dame today. Boise State still down. 4 minutes to go in the opening half, but with the ball and right around midfield. But actually, it just got backed up by a big sack on Madsen. So 4th and 19 back to the Boise's 39. So a punt is going to be coming here, and Wyoming will get the ball up by 3 and an opportunity to maybe put more points on the board before they even get to the break. Alabama has finally taken a lead. Low-scoring one so far. 3-0 at Oklahoma. 3 minutes to go opening quarter in that one. Auburn, 2-touchdown lead, 14-0 at home and with the ball against Texas A&M. That game is a quarter deep. Iowa State is up a touchdown and threatening for more. 3rd and 1 at the Utah 19, 7-3. The Cyclones are leading this one. That game is a couple minutes into quarter number 2. Any of these games in particular, and I guess I'd really be looking at a couple, A&M Auburn and Alabama Oklahoma, that have your interest in terms of any live betting opportunities, Brady?
You know what? Those are exactly the two that I have gravitated towards here. I wonder if A&M is worth a play. I mean, they're on the other side of 10 now. They're getting 10.5 in game. Boy, we talked about this with Tommy and the late steam that came in on Auburn. It certainly felt like the right side and the spot for them tonight. So is 10.5 enough points that A&M can hang within? It seems to me like it is. I'd probably lean that direction. And then Alabama, Oklahoma, now it's down to 13.5. Just a minute ago, it was 14.5 on Oklahoma. And I still felt that was a great number. That was really better than you were getting at kickoff. They were getting 14, maybe 13.5 or so. And now it's down to 10.5. Maybe the Sooners are moving the ball here or something. It looks like it. I'm not sure, but it was moments ago that you could have had a really good number on that one. 10.5.
People are just listening to you, Brady.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably still not too bad. I am on Oklahoma. I like the Oklahoma side here. I got the full 14. Yep. Right now, so far, it's playing out the way we would like it to. And Tommy talked about this, too. At home, their defense should show up and keep this one close to the vest. So far, that's the way it's going.
Yeah, they have moved it from the 25 to the 36, so that may have impacted things ever so slightly. I think, are we good to welcome in Kenny, or are we still... All right, let's bring in Kenny White, professional sports bettor, again, host of the Bet the Gambit show on YouTube. He is on Twitter at KWhiteyVegas, and a guy that used to set these lines. I mean, is there anyone more perfect we could bring on to dissect some of the line movement and whether these things are correct or not? Kenny, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Fun time of year for me. There's so many sports going on, and I'm handicapping a sport that nobody talks about, which is great for me, and that's women's college basketball. So that's what I'm focusing on. I didn't sweat one game today. I just checked some scores, and it looks like I'm having a really good day in the FBS. But I don't sweat scores on Saturday anymore. I don't do in-game because I don't have any time to. I'm working on other sports and putting together power ratings and making numbers on those sports. So I've got NFL games that I bet. I can talk about those. I can talk about games. I've been a market maker and watching the screen and knowing when to jump in and bet games like that. But right now, like I said, I just looked at scores just now on my SpankOdds screen, and it looked like I've done pretty good so far. I had UAB, a big play on them. They won by 100. Liberty I had today, and Indiana and Ohio State over, and that didn't look like it was going over, but I got there by 0.5 point. So you couldn't have got me any better news than I have right now.
Kenny, I know we'll hold you over here for another segment or two. I appreciate you sticking around with us. But do you have any, when you check those scores, some of those bets that you made earlier in the week, do you still have any games in action currently or some coming up later this evening?
Well, I bet USC in this battle tonight of, the Battle of Southern California for a couple of reasons. I think USC is the better football team. I've got them 11 points better in my power ratings. We know there's no debate on who the better head coach is, Lincoln Riley or Deshaun Foster. We know it's Lincoln Riley. He has the experience. Revenge factor. USC lost last year 38-20 in the Coliseum. And when you're 11 points better, there's no home advantage. So I thought USC should have been about 13.5 in this one. I laid 4.5 with the Trojans.
We're just scratching the surface here with Kenny White. Thrilled to have him on with us, hanging out for a couple of segments. We will get into some NFL, obviously. It's an interesting slate that we have in front of us tomorrow, and there's some very important games, very important divisional games that are happening across the National Football League. We will continue to check in on these college football scores as well. We'll be back here on SportsGrid. It's in-game live college football game day.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
That lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Brandon Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work!
Look at that position, that's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing lots of throw. Oh, he's out! He's out!
He's in big trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
We are back in-game live college football game day here on SportsGrid. Guess what? 21-0 now. Auburn is leading Texas A&M. That is 2 minutes into the second quarter. So a long way to go in this game, but even still. I mean, I'm on Auburn as well. I know Brady is, but there's a difference between feeling like Auburn was the right side versus what we are seeing so far here. This is a demolishing at this moment. I don't know if A&M is going to show some fight, but so far we're not seeing it. We have chatted about a lot of games throughout the day, a lot of games tonight, a lot of the ones that still are to come. But there is one, Brady, that is in front of us, albeit, hours away, that we have not really spent any time on yet. That, Colorado, as much as we love Colorado, this is Colorado State. Colorado State against Fresno State of interest to you here. 3.5 point spread.
Yeah, absolutely. You had both Colorado teams, Colorado State and Colorado, in line to possibly play in their conference championship games. I'll ask you about this one, Kenny. Colorado did not. That attempt has failed earlier today, losing to Kansas. But Jay Norvell's club, if they win out here, they've won 5 in a row. If they win 2 more, they will be in that Mountain West Conference championship game. They're at Fresno State, who has lost 2 in a row and off of a bye. The Bulldogs a short favorite here. Which way you going with this one, Kenny?
Yeah, I bet this game over. And again, a lot of it's Jay Norvell and his offensive philosophies. His team hasn't put up a ton of points this year. I really think because some of the competition that he played against, and there was a couple of weather factors here and there that created bad situations for offenses. But I like the quarterback play. I like the overall offense for this team. And a lot of their games, they've turned the ball over a lot this year. Amazing they have the record that they have because they've been so turnover prone. But Fresno's a team that can also put points on the board. They're playing for their coach, Tim Skipper, and I did make Colorado State a little bit higher than Colorado State in this game, but I didn't bet it. I'm kind of kicking myself now because it did open 2. Was bet up to 3.5, as you said. Now I lost a lot of value. I'll pass since I lost that, but I did go over 47.
So in terms of, I know you weren't heavily invested in the day in terms of college football anyway, but you know, the playoff is right around the corner. We were chatting before about how the committee is going to view the field and what sort of movement we should expect. Ole Miss, you know, a costly loss today. Indiana, in the eyes of many, that was a problematic loss for the Hoosiers, despite it being the first one. Indiana, just this nonstop mission to, you know, prove itself to the world, basically, because normally we think of Indiana as a basketball school, not a football school. Anything that you took away from some of the outcomes today that, you know, ultimately are going to shape not only bowl season, obviously, but the college football playoff that everyone is waiting on, an expanded 12-team format for the first time?
Well, I am heavily invested in college football every Saturday because I bet probably 30% more than my bankroll. I play over I played over 100 games today, and again, I didn't know results because I don't like to see results. Once I start sweating, I'm going to sweat all day, and then I got so many plays. So that's why I don't sweat, because I have so many bets, and I know that at the end of the day, hopefully, I'm going to go 55-45. And grind out a profit. But so, yeah, I'm invested in all these games. I've got updated information on every single team in the FBS. Mississippi was my surprise team. I bet them at 35-1 a couple weeks ago when Boise State was in the college football when BYU was in the college football playoff in the Final Four with a bye. I almost went nuts because I sent this playoff schedule to the NCAA 20 years ago when I was working with them, and I had their ear, and I set up a 16-team playoff for them. And when I did that, I did it in the spirit of having the 16 best teams in the country in the tournament, not somebody who just got lucky and played an easy schedule. They didn't just get lucky. But my point is, I would have had Mississippi a 12-point favorite over BYU on a neutral, and BYU is a bye team, and Mississippi wasn't even in. And that's why I bet Mississippi at that time at 35-1. The SEC is making the right move. They're going to play one less conference game because they have the 8 best teams in the country in their conference, except for Ohio State. So they've got to play less games because they can't keep cannibalizing themselves and knocking themselves out of the tournament. There should be 6 SEC teams in this tournament.
6
We've got
SEC.
Kenny White hanging out here with us. We're going to spend some more time with Kenny on the other side. We'll get to some NFL as well. You can check out Kenny's website as well. Subscribe for his picks, KennyWhiteSports.com. More on the way here on Sports Grid.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown to right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round 1 halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done from underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou. Punches from the top. Nasty work. Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing tons of throw. Oh, he's out. He's out.
We are back with Kenny White, of course, Brady, Adam. Great to have you here with us. If you are watching across SportsGrid TV, be it any of the number of places that you can tune in and find us, we appreciate you. SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 159, we thank you there as well. We have been heavy for the first hour plus on all things college football. There'll be a lot more college football talk before we are out of here, obviously, but got to start to mix in some NFL, especially with Kenny, who, again, gives out picks, doesn't give them away. You got to pay for the picks, but the picks are good. Picks are winners, and he's out there, invested in tomorrow like the rest of us. And as I mentioned before, Kenny, there are some interesting games, a lot of divisional battles. There are division races that are shaping up, obviously playoff races. But I do want to begin with just a bit of news before we get to specific games, and that is, the Giants pulling the plug on Daniel Jones. He's gone. He's out there. He is now available. Is he playing this weekend for anyone? Of course not. But there's already speculation. I don't know exactly how it works in terms of, waivers and then getting into a new system and being available to play and how quickly all of that works. But people are already like, man, could Daniel Jones go to the Cowboys? Could he play against the Giants on Thanksgiving? If Brock Purdy's out for multiple weeks, could he wind up in San Francisco, be starting for the Niners? There are all these teams that are quarterback hungry because there are so few truly good quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not saying Daniel Jones is one of them, but he's better than some of the crap that is out there right now. And that includes the guy replacing him, Tommy DeVito. We could talk about the Giants and the Buccaneers in a little bit, but where do you think? I'm sure there's a book out there. There's probably multiple books out there that have the team to sign Daniel Jones odds. Where do you think he winds up going? Because he's going to play somewhere before the year's out.
That's a great question, Adam. I have not looked at that. I was shocked that the Giants just cut him, that they didn't try to trade him, which is amazing to me. And maybe it was the contract. I don't know the details of it. But, yeah, you're right. Somebody could definitely use a Daniel Jones. There's no doubt about it. Maybe he just didn't fit into Brian Daboll's offense. I know Shanahan could make him fit into the 49ers offense. That's for sure. I say that, and maybe not, because Trey Lance didn't fit into the 49ers offense. He wasn't the guy they thought they were getting when they drafted him. So there's going to be somebody, obviously, in this league. Winning is so important, and head coaches need to win. General managers need to win. Everyone wants to save their job, and if they can think Daniel Jones is going to help them, they're going to. And you bring up a great point with the Cowboys. Why not? He can tell you everything about that Giant defense, and it might get you an extra W that Jerry Jones desperately wants.
Kenny, let's dive into the games. Of course, many years ago, you ran a company that made the numbers for Las Vegas. I had a very confusing time struggling with this Kansas City Chiefs visiting Carolina Panthers number. I make my numbers and what have you. I get into the stats, and I do a few different exercises trying to come up with what my number is going to be on a game. And I made the Chiefs 14.5, and I thought maybe it would be 16. And then I look and it comes out 10 or 11. That seems short to me. What are your feelings about Kansas City visiting Carolina on Sunday?
Yeah, Brady, I what I do is I don't like to bet favorites. So I take 20% off my favorite numbers. Now, I made Kansas City 16.5. I have a 16.5 point difference between the two teams. And I have a scale of how much better the visitor is than the home team that I take off the home advantage. And about 12 points is no home advantage whatsoever. If you're that much better than the visitor, you're not getting any home field. So I didn't give any home field. I make the game 16.5, but I take that 20% off. You're looking at almost 3.5 points when you take 20% off your favorite at 16.5. So I made the game 13. And then I'm trying to factor in streaks now because I use streaks in baseball religiously, and I've used them for 25, 30 years on winning streaks because you want to be on that streak and you want to be betting against that team that's been losing. So I came up with this because I bet against Indiana a couple times this year, and I knew they had a good team, and I loved their coach when I rated them at the beginning of the year, and I should have never been betting against them, but I felt it was time that I was buying low at that point, but I wasn't yet. And it was only one game, actually. I lost with Michigan State. And then the next week I said, I should factor in that winning streak. So I'll factor in Kansas City's 4-game ATS streak and give a half point for each game they've lost in a row, which is 4, would be 2 more points. I'm going to make Kansas City 11. And Brady, I'm just passing the game. I don't want to lay the points. They're coming off the bubble burst game that their undefeated season is over with. And it was a tough game. I mean, they played 100% against the Bills, and the Bills played their best game. Bills played an A+. I would have loved for the Bills to play this week because I would have faded Buffalo. There's no way they could have come up with 2 performances like that back-to-back. But this will be a no play for me. I'll pass. It's funny. The Chiefs are 9-1, and their biggest win is by 13 points this year. Carolina's only won 3 games all year, and they beat the Raiders by 14.
So, Kenny, listen, you may not like to bet favorites, but let me tell you something. I do. The books love me because I am a sucker for the favorites. Let me tell you, my friend, my favorite of the favorites this week, I was just talking about them as it related to Daniel Jones, and that is the Giants. I know they're home, and I know some people might like Brady will probably later in the show give me some argument about new QB bump or whatever. We know who Tommy DeVito is. We know what he is. He's not impressive. Malik Neighbors is dealing with a groin issue, even though he expects to play. The Giants offense that with Daniel Jones averaging 10 points per game at home. On the other side, the Buccaneers, who just keep figuring it out with Baker Mayfield, are now getting Mike Evans back. That team is considerably better than the Giants, who have a woeful defense that Tampa and that offense should be able to exploit. And you're going to tell me, forget inside a touchdown. I can get inside 6. I can get a 5.5 on Tampa on the road. Sign me up. It's my favorite of the favorites. Give me a reason not to bet it.
My reason would be that I think the Giants actually have the better defense. I've got them ranked 15th in the NFL, basically an average defense. On median, they're allowing 21 points per game. The Tampa Bay Bucs defense I've got ranked 25th in the NFL. Their offense has carried them all year long, and they've allowed 26.5 per game. I don't know about a quarterback bump, but I do know when somebody gets fired, the rest of the company does wake up. It happens in all sports. It works in every sport when somebody gets fired, whether it's the head coach or one of the star players. And I think it's even more of a bump when it is a star player. So you're right. DeVito, an average NFL quarterback at best, but so is Drew Luck. And the way Daniel Jones has played, he has been average. So I didn't make any drop whatsoever in the Giants' power rating. I've got them the same. I have Tampa a 1 point better team. If I don't give any home field, which I have to give them a little bit, but I won't, I'll make Tampa 1 in this game.
Wow. Very interesting number there. What about the Raiders, Kenny? I thought the number was off last week in Miami. Apparently I was off because the Raiders were run out of that building in South Florida. Do they get run out of the building in their own building here at home by all of a sudden a red-hot Broncos team?
Brady, I don't get to watch a lot of games. I think I watched more games that year that I worked with Sammy P. and Beeson, and we sat there on Saturday and Sunday going over games and doing in-game. That was the most games I've ever watched in my life. But I did watch one game last year. Now, I like to watch every team play one time. I watched the Raiders play last year when Antonio Pierce became the head coach, and he ran a trick play against the Chargers when he was up like 49-7. And as soon as he did that, I said, this man has no sportsmanship. He's not a very good coach, because great coaches have sportsmanship. This guy has no idea how to coach. He couldn't coach his way out of a wet paper bag. So I would never bet on the Raiders.
I wouldn't bet on him this week. That's for damn sure. What's your favorite spot that of the? Well, I guess we've only got a few seconds. Do you want to hang up one more segment, or should we wrap here? It's up to you.
No, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm making spaghetti sauce for tomorrow.
All right, then on your way out, what's your favorite play for tomorrow?
Well, let me give you one tonight. That's still a women's basketball game going on. Take Texas A&M plus 4.5. I made them a 2-point favorite. You got a 6.5 point play. My best play tomorrow is the Commanders to crush the Cowboys. A favorite.
See, you guys didn't think we'd be talking women's hoops tonight, did you? Kenny White, thank you.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajera is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Fajera in the gray.
That lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off balanced him a little bit. Takedown to him. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to come over that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Fajera. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top.
Look at that position, that's beautiful work. Henry's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing Hudson from right now. He's down!
He's in big trouble! And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
We are back. Our thanks to Kenny White. A lot of great insights, obviously, talking about not only tomorrow, but today so far in college football. Games still to come. Professional Sports Bettor on Twitter at KWhiteyVegas. You can check out his website, Kenny White Sports. He hosts the Bet the Gambit show on YouTube as well. Well-versed in the industry. There's no doubt about that, Brady.
What was that, Adam? Texas A&M catching 4 points, did he say, was the women's college basketball play of the night?
I believe that's what it was. Yeah, I can't say that I punched it in during the break. Not a lack of trust in him. We were just talking about other things. But I believe that's what the number was.
He said he made them a 2-point favorite, and I believe they are in the neighborhood of a 4-point underdog. So certainly qualifies as a play for Kenny White in women's college basketball. And he said he was having great success. And, you know, there's when you're a professional bettor, as obviously Kenny is, he's been a professional odds maker. He's kind of done a little bit of everything in this business. I've been friends with him for many years. But that's where you can find an edge typically. We're talking college football. We're talking NFL. And how is a professional bettor making money? He's going way deep in the weeds to women's college basketball and finding a number that's off, right? I mean, it's not exciting. It's not glamorous. But, hey, it's about turning a profit.
No, you need a niche. You know, there are just so many people in this space. And I guess that applies more to in many ways to the newer people that are looking to break in versus the established people like Kenny. But I don't know, maybe in Kenny's shoes and people like him that have been around for decades and doing it, you can't just rely on your existing subscriber base. You're trying to bring in new people, and so you got to evolve with the times. And as new sports become bettable, and like you said, you can find an edge on it, it just sets you apart from everybody else. So clearly, he's betting everything and betting it in volume and, finding expertise on multiple subjects. So good on him. We're going to have Drew Dinsick, NBC Sports bet analyst, coming up with us top of the hour. We'll do a lot more NFL with him. We can ask him what sorts of college investments he had throughout the day as well today. And, we get toward this point in the show here, Brady, when this is when the show really speeds up on us, because we are going to look at every single game. The two of us, we'll give you our thoughts on how we would or already have bet many of these, whether it's player props, sides, totals, what have you. Take a look at some of these races, division races, playoff standing races. And on top of that, of course, within the next hour, we're going to have all the data as it relates to Circa Millions, Circa Survivor, which Circa Survivor took a minimal hit last week. I think maybe only 6-7 people went out. So we're, under 100 people remaining in that contest, that chase for $14 million. The implied value of the entries that people still have remaining of the, again, roughly 100 people left, over what, $140,000 ballpark, so we'll give you all that information coming up in a while and find out where people went. And I think this is a really interesting Survivor weekend because, as we know, we wondered early in the season when all these favorites were getting knocked off and pool was getting hemorrhaged week after week, will we even still be alive, I think. But here we are, obviously, and now you're getting to some very important spots where this pool works different than, maybe your school, say, if any of those are still live at this point, because as you well know, Brady, you got to have teams alive for Thanksgiving Day, for Friday. You got to invest in one of those teams if you're still there on game on Friday. We get, obviously deeper down the line.
Yeah, this is really the gauntlet that you have to survive here for the next few weeks in Circa Survivor. It really begins this week. I believe that the Washington Commanders, again, another team that Kenny gave out in the last segment that he really likes on Sunday. I like the Commanders as well. And I'm not talking about just winning this ball game for Survivor concerns. I think they're going to cover the big number as well. I don't lay often double digits in the NFL, but I will here on Sunday with Washington. I think that will easily be the most popular pick in Circa Survivor because that allows you to save teams for next week. In Circa Survivor, different from a traditional Survivor, there is the Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday where you have 4 games. You've got the Detroit Lions hosting the Chicago Bears, the Cowboys hosting the Giants, the Packers hosting the Dolphins all on Thursday, and then on Friday, the Chiefs hosting the Raiders. That's a separate week. So you have to pick a winner out of those 4 games. And then 3 days later, you go to Sunday and you have to pick a winner out of those games. So it's 2 weeks within one, really, in
Right.
Circa. And then the same thing for Christmas as well. The Chiefs play again on Christmas. They visit the Steelers. The Ravens are at the Texans and the Seahawks are at the Bears. Christmas is really hard. So it's such a week-to-week thing, but you do have to forecast because if we get all the way to Christmas, that becomes an incredibly difficult week. I think if I'm in Circa Survivor right now, I'm saving the Chiefs. Hopefully I haven't used them yet. I'm saving the Lions. Hopefully I haven't used them yet. And I'm saving the Packers for Thanksgiving, possibly hosting a cold weather team at Lambeau Field, hosting a warm weather team in the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if I want to use the Texans this week because they play on Christmas hosting the Ravens. Do you still have the Ravens? Are you going to play a road favorite on Christmas? There's so many decisions right now. And Circa, it amplifies the contest so much because you separate these individual holidays as their own weeks. So, yeah, it gets very difficult right now, and rightly so when you've got this much money on the line. And by the way, Adam, a friend of mine, Tony Gordon, trying to do the double dip. He has won the Circa Sports Million contest in his career and now is still alive in Circa Survivor. And Paul Bovey, who is a guest here on the network quite a bit, comes on every Wednesday right after me with Gabe and Cam. He has 2 entries still alive in Circa Survivor.
Amazing. That's awesome. I'll be curious to see if I don't think anyone did, but I'll be curious to see if anybody went Steelers on Thursday night and already got knocked out as well. I would doubt
Very
it.
possible.
That was a
road
tough
favorite,
spot
probably
against
not.
the Browns, but especially with the weather concerns and all that we were harping on all week. But more on the way. We're also going to check in soon with Kasey Hudson, get a halftime update in college football.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajera is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Fajera in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Takedown right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round 1 halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Fajera. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Hender's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back. And he is unleashing the from. Oh, he's out! He's out!
And he's down! And he is done! The king has returned! Francis Ngannou is back!
So if you were on Notre Dame minus 14 entering play tonight, you're feeling pretty good at the break. 28-7, Fighting Irish looking to hand Army its first loss of the year with, of course, the college football playoff right around the corner. We got some games, plenty of them, taking place in the top 25 tonight. More action outside the top 25 currently going on and still to kick off in the hours to come. Let's get a look at all things college football back in the SportsGrid studios with Kasey Hudson.
Thank you, Adam. As you mentioned, action-packed Saturday going down across the nation for college football right now. And I love how these games have played out. There's been a number of big dogs that have got knocked down, and there's been some other big dogs that have solidified potentially their spot in the playoff picture. Right now for the halftime report, more importantly, you got Army versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame well on top, flexing a 28-7 score. And this was crucial. They are breaking the stride of perfection versus Army. But in what ways are they able to do this? Well, they are containing Daly through the air. Bryson Daly, that is, for Army. He's still picking up some decent ground game, 61 through 2 quarters, obviously 14 carries. But for the most part, they've been able to get nothing done. Third down conversions, red zone, all these big flashy things that we've seen Army flex when it comes to, the Atlantic Conference, not working so well versus a Notre Dame team that has felt some type of way since that Week 2 loss. For the other side, though, we're looking at Riley Leonard, 130 through the air through 2 touchdowns. He's been really good with having having clean play, not turning over the ball, nothing too crazy, nothing too messy. Then you've got Love on the ground, no surprise here, 62 rushing yards through 6 carries, a few big breakaways, and then Faison in the air, 28 receiving yards through 1 big reception. So a big chunk play through the air, but a lot of ground game for Notre Dame. We talked about this earlier in In-Game Live as well as college football today, the fact that Riley Leonard is at that stage where he doesn't have to go for 220 plus passing yards. They have a great equal distribution in their attack, them being the Fighting Irish. So we'll see what power they continue to bring on the other half of halftime. Another reminder, 28-7, Notre Dame continues to stride. An interesting one here. You got Boise State versus Wyoming, knotted 10-10. They're back at it in the third quarter, 14:50 to be specific with the clock here. But this one turns out to be interesting because if Wyoming pulls one off here, you've got a Boise State team that's kind of gone in and out of the brackets for the playoff picture for college football coming up here shortly. We've already discussed some of the top teams that have been locked in since the Tuesday polls. Boise State did not make that poll or that bracket per se, but it still doesn't mean that they couldn't sneak in after the week continues further, after the regular season closes out, depending on the records. But these wins are crucial in order to make that conversation take place. Ashton Jetney on the ground continues to be so fierce, 103 through 11 carries, and then Camper through the air helping out his QB with 62 receiving yards through 3 receptions. As for some other games going down, halftime-wise, Oregon State on top 21-17 over Washington State. Then you've got an interesting dance here before halftime between Utah and Iowa State. We've seen the Cyclones drop some pretty big games. More importantly, they're carrying the lead in this one, 17-13 over Utah. A Utah team that just really hasn't caught a break when it comes to some injuries and some other play. But regardless, Iowa State has probably been more consistent in terms of the complete game category throughout the entire season. Isaac Wilson, 50 yards through the air. Bernard on the ground with only 25. Utah's not generating much of an offense whatsoever. Their biggest plays have come in the second quarter. And then we know what you guys want to talk about before we close out here for the halftime report. You got Auburn putting a beating on Texas A&M, 21-7, and the numbers just hopping around. The spread changed from 7.5, jumped up to 10.5. You got Auburn fully in control here on the reins, 53.5 when it comes to the spread. A lot of mistakes taking place for Texas A&M, but we've seen them be able to be shaken up after that week 3 scenario there. And then for some other scores coming up, you got Alabama versus Oklahoma, 3-3, completely deadlocked as the second quarter starts to wind down. Milroe, no surprise, 62 through the air, but not leading the rush group quite yet. It's Miller on the ground with 22 rushing yards through 4 carries. Bernard in the air with a chunk play, 1 reception for 32 yards. Jackson Arnold, not too bad. There was a shake-up for Alabama on defense. One of their linebackers going down. Lawson, more specifically, looked to be a lower body injury. We'll hopefully get an update on that once they fully go into halftime. But for the most part, if it's not Jackson Arnold doing all the work for Oklahoma, we might be seeing a different score. 83 rushing yards on the ground through 13 carries on top of his 34 through the air. Thompson being his lead receiver with 1 reception for 19 yards. So all of this is going to shake up and shape that playoff picture. Alabama needs the win right now, looking to face off potentially with Notre Dame if everything stands, depending on the other wins and losses that close out this Saturday. So throwing it back to Adam and Brady on the other side of this quick break here. Make sure you're following SportsGrid over at SportsGrid as we get you prepared for what's to come for the rest of the collegiate season and more importantly the postseason here on SportsGrid TV.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou in the gold and black. Reina Ferreira in the gray.
With that lead hand, he's got to be cautious because that right hand is coming over the top.
Oh! Off-balanced him a little bit. Take down the net right there. Randy Couture told you to watch for the wrestling. Who lands the takedowns? Good level change from Francis. Well timed. Drives through. Now on top.
My goodness. How are you going to get more of that? Oh!
Triangle attempt here.
Francis needs to rip out of that right now. The longer he stays, the more chance he has of getting caught.
Wrist again, trying to stifle the punching attack of Ngannou.
Round one halfway gone. Now the far side underhook for Reina Ferreira. See if he can build himself up. Easier said than done. From underneath somebody like Francis Ngannou, who punches from the top. Nasty work! Francis Ngannou wailing away.
Look how heavy he is on the hips. Look at that position. That's beautiful work. Henry's going to have to work tremendously hard to get Ngannou off him so he can get back